Promote a culture of inclusion, supercharge your communication, and unleash the full potential of your teams and leaders with the Inclusive Handbook collection from the Diversity Movement. As part of the collection, I wrote the Inclusive Leadership Handbook with Kurt Merriweather to empower leaders with tools needed to cultivate a culture that fosters creativity, innovation, and employee engagement. Through strategies, exercises, and self-reflection, leaders at all levels can enhance their effectiveness. Learn more at thediversitymovement.com/store. Use code HOL at checkout for 25% of your first order.
DEI budgets are under attack, but the goals haven't changed. Whether you're looking to increase your DEI knowledge, expand your market reach, or gain a competitive advantage in business, we have the solution. TDM Library is your single source for expert-curated DEI resources, strategies, and solutions, all designed to help you transform your workplace culture and be a more effective contributor. For $9.99 per month, you get access to our searchable subscription-based digital library. There, you'll find articles, practical how-to guidebooks, podcasts, award-winning microvideos, and more than 700 Q&As. Designed to help DEI practitioners, thought leaders, and executives create a more inclusive workplace. Whether you prefer to listen, watch, or read, we have the resources for you. TDM Library goes beyond the basics to dive deep into topics such as inclusive language, the business case for DEI, talent acquisition, and C-suite engagement. For less than the price of a sandwich, you get access to our library of more than 1,000 pieces of original, expert-curated DEI content. Join today and get your first 30 days free. Get your library card now at tdmlibrary.thediversitymovement.com.
You can't stop me, nothing's gonna stand in my way. Nothing. I'm gonna fly higher.
You're listening to the High Octane Leadership Podcast with Donald Thompson. The world is shifting around you. None of us were trained for this changing environment. You need high-octane leadership in an empathetic world before your business is swallowed alive. This podcast focuses on actionable, hands-on tools you can use to become a high-octane leader today and grow strong leaders throughout your organization to survive tomorrow. Join me along with global C-suite leaders, rising stars, ambitious entrepreneurs, and other leaders from across industries as we dissect, interrogate, and redefine high-octane leadership in an empathetic world. This podcast is your home for uncovering the tools, lessons, and strategies you need to push your leadership to the next level. Hi, my name is Donald Thompson. I am here with another episode of High Octane Leadership, and I am very excited to share some space today with Billy Warden. And Billy is a marketing executive and political consultant. Billy, welcome to the show.
DT, can I call you DT?
You sure can.
I love that. Thank you for having me, and congratulations on all your success with what we're doing here today, with your book. You are such an impressive fellow. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, it is shared both ways. And one of the things as we jump in, because I've been really looking forward to this, I've been watching you more closely as of late on the different television shows that you're on here locally and really nationally, talking about the political environment that we're facing. And one of the things that I'd love to get into as we get into midterms, as we've got another presidential election coming in, I'll start with this. Politics, by and large, is really pretty divisive right now. And it seems like to me, as kind of someone that's not really in the political spectrum, it's like a verbal food fight all the time. So here's my initial question as we think about it. With the polarization of politics, how do we allow ourselves to still have a constructive conversation in these dialogues and not make everything so attacking? What are you seeing that maybe could help us have some better discourse?
It's a huge question, right?
Sure.
And it's a question that everybody is talking about. One observation I would make is that there was a recent poll that NBC was involved in that found that 80% of folks who identify as Democrats see Republicans as being out of control and a threat to democracy. And 80% of Republicans see Democrats as being out of control and a threat to democracy. Point being that both sides see themselves as playing defense. So both sides, to your analogy of the food fight, both sides think like they were just sitting having lunch, enjoying a nice time at the cafe, and the other side got up and started throwing, muffins and iced tea at them. So when you think about it that way, that the person that you don't agree with doesn't see him or herself as being on the attack, but feels attacked, then perhaps that is, keeping that in mind is a prompt to step back and think, what am I bringing to this food fight? Am I the person who's reaching down into the bean dip and hurling it across the room? Is that how I'm coming across? Because in anything in life, relationships or whatever, you can only be responsible for yourself and your conduct and how much empathy you want to give and how much you want to listen.
I think that is personal responsibility for making it better.
Right.
And I appreciate that very much. One of the things that we do at the diversity movement, and when folks talk about diversity, equity, inclusion, right, a lot of times people that don't understand the space will think quotas, or they'll think things that are lowering standards, when really what we're trying to do is create a better workplace. But I will say that one of the things that occurred, and I believe you'll remember this, President Trump, at the time, President of the United States, had an executive order that outlawed DEI or put a stop to it in any federally supported agencies, right? And when we think about diversity, equity, inclusion in the way that it is presented, it's not about creating a better workplace. It's not about equity, right, which is basically creating some reasonable accommodations for folks that are maybe blind, low vision, or different things. It is seen as something that is this woke narrative, right, of people having something for nothing, different things like that. How can one create different narratives that people of an imposing view might more easily understand? Because you're both a political consultant and a marketing consultant. So I'm interested in your ideas of how we can better access minds of folks in a way that people can understand new messaging.
That's such a great question. It's so fascinating, and it's a big part of what I love about my job is trying to get into the mindset of whoever you're trying to convince. It's also just a great human exercise in terms of opening up and enjoying the beauty of humanity.
Sure.
Is getting to try to understand the other person's frame. So we talk about frames all the time. And when we're doing issues work, we're working on, say, Medicaid expansion right now. Have worked on juvenile jurisdiction issues. You think about different frames. And so one of the, really kind of fundamental frames is this idea that folks who tend to be Democrats are caring mothers. They're in a caring mother frame of mind. And that folks who tend to be Republicans are in a stern father frame of mind. I really like that way of thinking because it boils things down to things most people understand. Most people grew up with a mother and a father. And mother and fathers have traditionally, anyway, played certain roles in the families. So you can start to call on your own experience, and then how would I talk to my dad if I was trying to convince my dad as an 18-year-old that he ought to agree with me on issue? And how would I appeal to my mom if I was an 18-year-old trying to figure things out? How would I appeal to them? And so when we write op-eds and things, that translates tactically to different pitches using kind of different phrases and different priorities. So, we'll talk about the fiscal sense of an issue if we're talking to the stern fathers out there.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then that allows you then to get into specific examples that could be useful. And that's what we're always looking to do is how can I provide information that is make a case for something in a way that's useful to the other person and doesn't meet right away with their different kinds of resistance. So everybody, we're all kind of cognitive misers. Like, we don't have a lot of bandwidth in our heads for like new information and so if you can appeal to what someone's worldview already is, make the argument through specific examples, you can really start to move the needle. And I mentioned Medicaid expansion, and I hope you don't mind if I stick on a specific issue.
No, please, I'm interested.
So, North Carolina is one of the states where I live and is one of the states in the union that has not expanded Medicaid. Most states have expanded Medicaid. It's been an uphill battle to try to make that happen because some people look at the issue and they see it as a handout. So, well, then how do you make the case that, well, it's not a handout? Well, you talk about the real people out there who are, God, they're working 2 jobs and they just happen to be working 2 jobs where the employer doesn't offer insurance. And by the way, that's a lot of fields of work where your employer doesn't offer insurance. And let me tell you this person's name, and let me tell you how this person grew up and what this person has worked so hard to achieve and isn't covered by insurance, and that has the barricade to this person continuing to achieve. So you introduce the opponent of the idea to a person who they can establish some respect for, who they can even start to like, and just seeing all this perhaps on paper in terms of a story we're telling in a newspaper or a story we're telling via a pamphlet. And that is what really has helped move the needle quite a bit. And the North Carolina Senate now has fully embraced Medicaid expansion, and the House has embraced the idea, and now they have to work out terms with the governor. But that has been a huge shift, and it's been all about talking about the specifics of the situation, not stereotypes, but here's real people, and here's how this real thing that you could do could help them, and by the way, help you and help the community. I imagine you do the same thing with the DEI initiatives that you talked about, where, they come in freighted with a lot of preconceived notions, but when you just stop and slow down the story and are able to talk in specifics, then they start to make a lot of sense.
The part I really like, all of that good stuff. The part that I want to resonate with our audience, that I want to remember personally, is that story that moves it from a stereotype to a real person.
Yeah.
It's hard to vilify that real person that you connect with, somebody who's working 2 jobs, taking care of their family, right? Not in any kind of trouble with their legal system or anything like that, contributing to society, wants to make a better way for their kids, be educated out. Everybody's for that person.
Right.
And that's different than, are you for or against Medicaid?
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And on the flip side of that, I want to say that the folks who we've been talking to in policy positions, making the case for, they're good people, right? They're thinking about things as, we have a finite set of resources. This money that would go into Medicaid expansion isn't just hanging out there, just out, isn't be raked up like the leaves we're all enjoying falling right now. And I'm doing my job in trying to protect taxpayers. And so, they're coming at it from a place of virtue and from, their point of view. And
Sure.
You take that sincerely and work with that. Like, well, here's how the math would actually work out. And here's the number of jobs that could get created. And here's the benefits to urban communities and rural communities. And if you can get all those facts on the table and have a reasonable discussion, then we've been lucky that things have been moving in what I think is the right direction. But just having the discussion is of value, and feeling like you've had a fair hearing is of value. And that's a two-way street.
Yep. No, that's really good. I really appreciate that. When you think about politics in the workplace, right, and that, there's so many macro events, we're all kind of tied to these phones and devices and different things. So the world is moving and happening real time. It's only going to get more aggressive as the midterms come up, as our politics come up. How would you advise employers and business leaders to make sure that people are focused on the work at hand for sure, but what do we do as leaders when politics bleeds into how we work and live every day? Do you have any advice for leaders on that?
Isn't that fascinating? And when I came in and met some of your colleagues, they were talking about that this is one of the big questions that they're getting, especially like, as you say, right now, as things are really heating up. I come at it from the background of having been a journalist and a newspaper reporter at the News and Observer, which is the daily newspaper in the state capital of Raleigh, North Carolina. And Raleigh's a political town there. So it was politics in the workplace all the time.
Sure.
Not necessarily because the paper did take positions in their editorial page. And then a lot of what we covered, of course, was about politicians and political matters. And as journalists, we had to do that in a way that was fair and impartial. So my experience with politics, it was always baked into my professional life.
Sure.
But more broadly, the American tradition in the 20th century, that long ago century, it was, for corporations to sort of sit it out and, we're not political. We're about turning a profit. We're about doing well for our stakeholders and providing career paths for our employees, and not to mention quality products and services. That right there is a lot on your plate. The idea now that your employees come to work upset or keenly concerned about politics, and then that becomes a company issue or a matter of concern to company leaders, it's a complete about face for what the tradition has been.
Yep.
And a lot of company leaders today come out of the tradition of, we're on the sidelines of what you want to do with your time, and your treasure is your business outside of the office. Just like we're not going to ask you about what goes on behind your bedroom door or whatever. It's not our business. Our business is business. And it's really hard for companies now that, according to polling, especially Gen Z wants their brands to take a stand.
That's right.
When you called, which I was super excited about, I jumped into the latest polls, and what I found was Forbes, 64% of folks they surveyed expect their favorite brands to take a political stand. And by the way, one that they agree with.
70, right. Not only take a stand.
right. 73% would take action against a company. Like they would, and that can mean everything from I'm going to organize a big boycott to I'm going to tell my friends not to buy your product anymore. So folks want to see these companies come in and be players. Now, the polling on how folks feel inside companies, what I found was different. CNBC recently did a poll that 32% of workers say they support their companies speaking out, whether they agree or not, which I thought was really interesting, whether or not they agree. But that's 32%, and that 21% agree with their companies speaking out on issues, but only if they are aligned with that point of view. But that leaves a lot of people who are not particularly interested in their company getting super involved in politics. And it seems like for some people out there, they would still like to go someplace and get away from the fights they see on what TV and radio they can listen to when they're not working, or what happens around their kitchen tables. But that still leaves a good chunk of folks who are super concerned about politics. So just to kind of put it in context about what's going on out there. I mean, 20%, 30% still
a significant number. And then the other thing that you said that I want to expand on is it probably would be even higher when you look at the generations.
Yeah, right.
The Gen Z employees are highly emotive, highly focused on brands they identify with, both that they want to work for and that they want to buy from.
Yeah.
And that is really moving the needle. And one of the things that we found that leaders are struggling with is that balance between empathy and economics, and how to really think about the whole person at work. Like, what's my role
right
in my employee's life?
Yeah.
versus just what's my role in that employee's professional life.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And there's a real struggle. There's not a real answer, but there is a heightened expectation, right? And that's what's interesting. Executives are expected to behave at a certain level, but there's no blueprint. There's no playbook.
Yeah, and a political conversation is never going to follow a playbook. You know, like they can become so heated, they can become so emotional. It's hard to train for, I imagine, as somebody who does trainings and seminars and things. It's really hard. I know some companies do role playing where they will, as a management team, work on their communication skills and how to deal with somebody who wants to talk politics and is interested in answers and is interested in action, and how to have a conversation that doesn't mean that you're going to agree with everything they say, and it doesn't mean that you're going to try to shut them down, but attempts to find some kind of way for that person to continue to contribute at his or her talents, which obviously you cared about because you brought them in, but doesn't commit the company to something that the company can't follow through on.
Yeah.
So important for companies, I think, to, as part of their strategic plan and as part of what they share with employees, to talk about what their themes are in terms of community engagement and how their themes or their lanes of community engagement match up to the company's overall goals.
Gotcha.
Right? So you see a lot of tech companies that get involved in digital inclusion, for example. That's a good match. It makes sense. It's within the company's expertise to be able to do that. It gives the company and its marketing folks a lane in which to enter public discussions. It doesn't preclude them from getting involved in fast-breaking political issues if they feel it's important, but it does create some consistency and some kind of guides for folks like managers, like outward-facing marketing people, and for just all the employees. Like, I've come to this company, and I want to work here for these reasons. Maybe because the pay is really great, or maybe because the pay is really great and the people are really great, or whatever reasons. Sure. And I know when I sign on that here's how the company wants to make the world a better place, and that's what I can expect. And if I want more or less of that, that's okay to have that conversation. But it's been made clear to me that that would be outside of the norm that the company's established.
Let's take a quick break. As a Black professional, I faced many challenges inherent to contemporary America. I had to fight to secure my place and fulfill my dreams. Underestimated, a CEO's unlikely path to success is my story. Whether you are a young person of color, a rising leader in your organization, or someone who may feel a little bit lost, there is a path forward that is built on grit, determination, perseverance, and drive. I've dedicated my career to developing my leadership skills and then coaching others towards success. In Underestimated, you can follow my unique path, uncovering business and life lessons that can help anyone realize their dreams. You can order Underestimated wherever books are sold and find more information at donaldthompson.com. Now, back to the show.
So I think that those norms are super important. And when I continued working outside of journalism, you know, I decided to become an entrepreneur about the time 15, 18 years ago when the culture of workplaces got really into, like, we're not only going to be the place where you come and work, we're going to be your life source.
That's right.
Like, you know, it got and like, I was just like, not, for me personally, that just I was not so interested in that. Like, no, really, I really do want to work hard for you, and I like the work, but, you know, I don't need you to be with me at all times, and I don't want to lean on you for, like, emotional support or things. Now, I know that makes me different probably than a lot of the folks in the current generation coming into work. I just did a column where I interviewed a kid 28. I apologize for using the term kid,
Sure, I
but I
fall
mean
into
it as
that
a
also.
compliment.
Yeah,
You
sure.
know, but so a young person around 28 who became a digital nomad during the pandemic. He traveled the world while doing tech sales, and he wrote so beautifully about what he learned. One of which was, I learned how to ski, became like a extreme skier, and I worked so hard at it, and my legs hurt all the time, my shoulders hurt all the time. I was frostbitten. And I worked that hard and I got no money out of it whatsoever. I worked that hard because it was so satisfying to me personally. And it connected me to the world and it connected me to things inside of myself. And now I want to take that back and find that in a career. Now, wow.
Yeah.
That is a lot to put on any
A job.
LLC or corporation or whatever out there, right? But that kind of passion is amazing, right? And probably you as a CEO and as an entrepreneur be like, oh God, yeah, I wanted that passion. I want to try to get a hold of some of that passion because that person can do amazing things for the organization. But then you're also getting all that energy and all that expectation. So it's really hard.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it very much. One of the things you mentioned was your career in journalism, and then you mentioned, building stories that are fair and balanced. The trust in our media sources has gone down over the years, and because there's so much, in my opinion, there's so much noise in the ether, if you will. What are some of the things you've done that you expect of folks in the media to keep things that are reporting the news, that are sharing a narrative, that everything's not an opinion piece? Which sometimes what are some of the things you think we can do better as we're communicating information? And that's whether it's politics or current events or what have you.
God, it's such a fraught question because, the way I was trained and the style that's come under such critique lately is that you get input from both sides and that you present both sides. And lately the critique has been, but not both sides are telling the truth, or they're not telling the truth in equal measure, or you have to play some role in fact checking. So I think that the fact checking part of it is important, and taking the time to put things in context. But putting things in context takes time, and so the countervailing trend is we'd like to see everything in a list. Could you give us a 3-minute read that's not a narrative, that's mostly bullets? So, so
140 characters.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So there's these countervailing forces out there on the media that I think makes their job really hard. I did a recent commentary about truth in advertising and politics and people's frustration with it, and the fact that could you somehow regulate free speech when it comes to politics, even though it's probably the primary concern of the Constitution? How would you regulate that? And these laws that are on in different states, there's 27 states that have some laws about regulating political speech. They're always being undercut by courts' decisions that know they violate the First Amendment. So it's super difficult. The reason I bring it up is because factchecker.org put it best when they said, in democracy, you're the fact checker. Democracy is hard work, and you're the fact checker. So that means you read something, check the facts. Not only check the facts, check the reporter. What is the reporter's track record like? What's the publication? How did the publication fare in the various websites out there that measure political slants? Now, do you have time to do all that? Probably not. But it's still up to you, to your point about personal responsibility. Like, democracy is hard work. Politics is hard work. If you want a better political system, it really does start with you. Like, I hear Michael Jackson's Man in the Mirror on the radio, and I'm like, this song is so old, and in some ways, probably some people would say it's so cheesy, and it's like, that's still the truest song of all time. Democracy really comes down to you. The hard work of politics comes down to you. If you want your company to do something, maybe the company's will, maybe they won't, but you have to make the case in a way that is persuasive. And what can you believe out there in the media? You can believe there's a lot of good people trying really hard to get the story straight, and they can't do it by themselves. They need your help to do it. They need you to do some research and for you to prioritize and talk about the sites that you find to be accurate and the most helpful.
Oh, that's a powerful answer. The last question for me,
Was it, or was I just rambling?
No, that's good. I enjoy just learning from varied experiences, and the way that you storytell is really powerful. The last question I have is moving really away from politics, but generally as a communicator, right? So a lot of folks that listen to my podcast are business leaders, emerging entrepreneurs, marketing professionals. What are some of the fundamental truths of being an excellent communicator? What are some tips? What are some things you've learned when someone needs to communicate a message of any type? But what are some of those best practices to create that communicating connection with your audience?
I can't believe you're asking this question of me. Like I want to know your answer to this. My big answer to this is going to be, some people will think it's cheesy, but I think enthusiasm and a joy at the opportunity to convey an idea or convey information is where the most effective communications starts from. Like that, gosh, I'm going to get asked my opinion. I'm going to have 5 minutes, or I'm going to have 20 minutes with DT or whatever it is. I'm going to have this moment where I'm going to get to talk about something that matters to me. I'm going to get to share experience. That's wonderful. The human interaction between asking and then conveying and receiving information is just such a miracle. To go at any opportunity like that, like this is fantastic. I want to make the very most of it. Yep. I want to believe in everything that I say, and I want to make an impact on the person that I'm talking to. That's going to influence how you prepare, which is, of course, super important. What do you want to convey, and what points are you going to use to convey that? To go back to earlier in the conversation, talking about frames and knowing who your audience is. But then in a way that's not calculated at all, just the way you present, like, is so important to come across with that authenticity, because people will see right away, this person has some spark. Doesn't have to be like super energetic or bubbly necessarily, but this person is excited about the idea that he or she's talking about. This person's excited about his or her life, about his or her job, about his or her cause. Mm-hmm. And we are hardwired as human beings to tune into that. So that's my answer as a communications person, is to feel it.
I think, you mentioned a buzzword, but a word that is pretty critical, which is authenticity. Mm-hmm. I think that people can pretty quickly spot someone that's not in it for them, that's trying to manipulate them. And again, they've got to choose whether that's something they're looking for or not. But I think that we're all attracted to that communicator that's trying to share something with us for our good.
Yeah.
And I think we can feel that as we roll. One of the things that I like to do as I wind out with folks, and as we grow our audience and different things, you do a lot of consulting work on the marketing side, writer, different things like that. How can people get in touch with you? Like, if they hear this, they hear your voice, they hear your messaging, like, you know what? I'd like to hear a little bit about more what Billy's up to and how I can maybe work with him. How could people get in touch with you?
Well, thank you for asking.
Oh, you're welcome.
GBW Strategies is the name of the marketing PR company, GBW Strategies. And then I'm billy.warden@gmail.com. So if you want to send me an email, please do. I mean, every politician's out there sending me fundraising emails right now.
So they can get to us.
So I would love to see something that's not like that. So please do send me an email, and please take a look at the company. And I do a lot of magazine writing on the side, and I'm always looking for interesting stories, often about people who are sort of out of the mainstream, unconventional people, oddball characters who have somehow done something to move the culture, or somehow doing something extraordinary. Those are stories that I love to tell, and so please hit me up with those leads as well. Boy, thank you so much for reaching out, because I'm a big fan.
Yeah,
and
me
to,
as well.
to get to be here with you right across the table from
That's
you,
right.
I've been shooting for this.
Yeah, and just chopping it up. And
That's right.
One of the things that I enjoy is just spending time sharing space with talented folks. And I've got I should have had a notebook, but I got my little sticky notes of just things that you've said. And one of the things I remember about you as we talk and as we interact in the community is you always have a big smile. You always have that willingness to support and help. When I talked about wanting to talk a little bit about politics, not dig into one issue versus the other, but you immediately came to mind. And the reason, and I want to share this compliment with you, is having listened to you over the years talk about politics on a lot of the shows that I'm able to see, I don't know what your politics are. And that means that when you're talking about an issue, you're talking about an issue, the pros and cons of the issue. And personally, I appreciate that. Right? Like, and it doesn't matter, because you're giving information that other people can do their homework. And I think that is sorely missed in our discourse these days, which are people that are willing to educate on some of the issues versus everybody's trying to influence you at every moment. Yeah. And so I really wanted to share that compliment with you. And thank you for spending time and coming to chat with us.
You want to do it again tomorrow?
Not tomorrow, but maybe again. It was good to see you.
DT.
Yeah, this is DT, and over and out for High Octane Leadership. And one of the things that I will leave you all with, just the last message, is that winning in life, professionally and personally, we have to make an intentional choice to use what we have at that moment at our disposal to chase the goals and dreams that we have. None of us, most of us, weren't born with a silver spoon, and who wants to be born with a spoon in your mouth? That has to hurt. But the reality is that we have to win with the cards that we're dealt. And we want to be a voice of having leaders that can describe and influence us in a positive way to continue that dream chase for one another. So, TT, over and out.